Hello everybody, Adrian Plus here,
Yes, and Bridget.
and this is our second week of Sounding the Shallows,
It is.
and we're very pleased to be getting going on this. And we've had quite a lot of correspondence.
Oh, we
haven't
have.
recently.
Well, we've had some anagrams.
We have.
We've had quite a lot from one person. Anagrams for Sounding the Shallows. I shall read all of them to you.
These are all
and
from
you
the
can
same
decide.
person, aren't they? Yeah.
They are. Gunshots hold in-laws.
No, that's just I think that
You
is
like that one, don't you?
well, because it's like one of those big headlines you get in very cheap newspapers. Gunshots hold in-laws. I mean, that's clever. Got nothing whatever to do with
it's
Sounding the Shallows.
Worrying, but
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I don't think any of them have got anything to do
No.
with Sounding the Shallows. We've got Agnes shouts downhill. Astonished gull shown. Shown what, we ask? Shows astounding hell.
Oh dear.
Downhill season thugs. And Halo's light sundowns.
Very ingenious. Yes, and the gull is the only actual link to what we're talking about, but a very, very good piece of hard work. Yes, and also a friend and I, she did most of the work, but we ended up with an anagram of Sounding the Shallows, which is "Show us all things done," which is kind of accidental in its creation, but sort of
Quite
sounds
Julian of Norwichy, isn't
sounds a
it?
bit mystical. Yeah, so
And we did have somebody sending us one for Lockdowner, which is no old wreck.
oh goodness me.
Obviously, that's what she's feeling. She also sent a blessing, this person, which maybe we'll use later on, maybe when we got a little bit nearer to the shore.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, we'll do that. And we also had a correspondence from a friend who remembered the story we told about our misuse of language, making mistakes.
When we were
with
in France.
French,
Yes, of course.
And he was telling me about something that happened to him when he was on a bus, and I can't remember which country it was in, but
I think it was in the Ukraine.
yeah, probably in the Ukraine. And his younger brother was being told off by an elderly lady.
A Russian.
A Russian, yeah.
That's right.
And he decided he would intervene, and which would have worked out fine if he'd remembered the word he was trying to say. But actually, I gather he said in a very loud voice, he called her little girl, which he said she didn't say much after that, which is very understandable.
I think he was trying to say woman.
He probably was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I said to him, what I like to imagine is her at home discussing this inexplicable event where somebody stood up and shouted "little girl" at her. But she's probably still trying to work it out now. Anyway, thank you very much for that story.
Yeah, and the other
True
thing,
story.
I don't know if you remember, it seems like a long time ago now, but we were asking, as we're coming slowly out of complete lockdown, how it feels to be tentatively looking at things. And we were thinking about first times. And we had two really interesting responses to that, didn't we? Because one was it had been like a sort of nudging in her for some time, growing and building until finally she couldn't stop becoming a church warden. Now, that might not sound very adventurous, but for her, it was huge, that knowledge that God really wanted her there. And she said it's been one of the best times in her life. And she could so easily have missed it if she hadn't just had that final bit of courage.
Yeah.
And the other one was somebody who really did experience bodyboarding.
Absolutely, yeah. From what she said, one of the great experiences of her life, wasn't it?
It was. She said, having been quite tentative about it, when finally she caught the big wave, she said it was the most exhilarating, exciting thing. She couldn't stop laughing.
Shrieking, laughing,
Shrieking,
shouting.
Yeah.
Yes, just completely overwhelmed by the fact that a wave had picked her up and taken her. Amazing.
It must have been, I think, a bit like that when, at Pentecost, when they came out onto the steps of that building, filled, carried on a wave of the Spirit.
Bit of a tidal wave, maybe, yeah. I wonder what it was like. I wonder if they were laughing and sparkling. We don't actually know, do we? But whatever it was a lot better than the way they'd managed after the crucifixion.
Yeah.
There was a new confidence, and they really had waited, and
They'd waited
Spirit had come.
till the big wave.
Yeah, the wave had come. Yeah.
Because there were dangers in waiting for big waves. And we were talking about this because we began on the basis, really, of this to start thinking about catching the wave and what that actually means for us at the moment when we're sounding the shallows. And we were remembering, weren't we, when we were in Australia for the very first time, and we went up to Noosa. And Noosa is one of the places for surfing.
It was. And I'd never seen surfers close up. I mean, why would you?
No.
But we saw
Living
several
in
of them.
Sussex.
And I remember afterwards we described them as dry, crazed creatures who seemed to be selling their souls to these vagaries of the sea. And when you spoke to them, they're terrified to leave in case the big one arrived.
Yeah.
And they missed it. And so, to everyone else, it's all meaningless. But to them, it was the centre of their life. It was quite extraordinary.
It was. And it felt as though they'd abandoned so much in order to chase that wave, that one big one.
Yeah,
And we
right.
were thinking, weren't we, about a time, maybe it'll happen again, I don't know. But there was news of a wave of the Spirit, the big wave.
Yeah.
And people were kind of abandoning everything that was they knew to chase that wave. And for some people, it was exhilarating. It was something that was so amazing. But for a lot of people...
the Toronto blessing.
That was one of them, absolutely.
There might be a Sedgefield blessing one day, mightn't there? Maybe our town will go on the side. I don't think so. But what was sort of amusing, but a little bit worrying, was that some churches were sending people off to collect the Toronto blessing from Toronto and to kind of bring it back in a bag.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that was that some people went there and did find something.
Absolutely.
And others did not at all. Now, I don't know how you explain that. Perhaps it's something to do with what you're really looking for in your heart. I don't know.
Maybe it's as simple as the fact that wasn't your big wave. That one wasn't for you.
Yeah.
It was for somebody else. And chasing like they did in Noosa, chasing after the big waves can sometimes not be such a good idea.
I was just thinking then that maybe it's to do with doubt, that when you're frightened God doesn't turn up, or he isn't there, or it isn't how it's supposed to be, that you're going to sprint away to get something that sounds as if it gives you the thing you've always wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't judge that.
No, it happens in different ways. But fear can be a problem, can't it? This is not to do with chasing the bird. This is to do with allowing the possibility that there might be a wave for you, and that there might be something a little bit out of your control. And there are ways to cope with that. And my best example, do you remember when I think Joe was 3? Yeah, about 3. And we were at the seaside, very safe seaside in Eastbourne with your mum. And our children had always loved going into the sea, hadn't they? And paddling and splashing and all the rest of it. But Joe suddenly, absolutely and categorically decided he was not going in. And it turned out that he'd heard us saying that the tide was coming in, but he heard quite clearly that the tiger was coming in. Well, why would you go into the sea if you thought a tiger was coming in?
You would not go into the sea, no.
No, but what was so lovely, if you remember, was the way your mum dealt with it. She didn't make him get into his swimming things. She didn't even do anything herself. She just took him with all his clothes on and safely they just went into the very shallowest part of the sea, and then a little bit deeper, and then a little bit deeper, and eventually he was splashing around with all his clothes on, just as he would always have done.
She was very good at that sort of thing.
She was very good, and sometimes we sort of look at people who are fearful and think, oh, they're just too afraid, without thinking, how can I get them into the water? Yeah.
And there are other ways, I think, in which you could miss out on a wave. One of them is human logic. Certainly for those who are believers, and I can only talk about Christians because that's all I know about, but it's very hard sometimes to understand the logic of what God wants to do or is doing, because it's on a different, seems to be on a different plane altogether. And we're going to read you now an imaginary conversation between Mary, the mother of Jesus, and her house group leader, who is called Bernard, only because all house group leaders are called Bernard, or 80% of them, research shows. And Mary has come to talk to her house group leader because something has been suggested to them to do. Okay, Mary love, just take a seat and relax. It's so great to see you. So, Joseph, baby, they're okay?
Oh, absolutely, they're fine. I got some gifts for the baby from some visitors yesterday. They were a bit odd. The gifts, I mean, well, actually, the visitors were a bit odd as well. But, it was really nice.
Good. So, what's on your mind?
Right. Well, okay, Bernard, it's just that Joe and I, well, we've been having this sort of feeling that maybe God's trying to tell us or nudge us in the direction of moving to Egypt.
Yeah, okay, go on.
Well, that's it. That's it, really. I mean, we've just had this sort of idea that God might want the baby out of the way because of, Herod and all that. Well, I suppose we wondered what you might think about it all.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay. First of all, Mary, what you say makes a lot of sense. Herod might come after the baby. Egypt's a long way away. Escape while you can. Come back when it's safe. It's logical. I see where you're coming from. Okay. A couple of questions?
Yes, of course. Fire away.
Okay. Well, first of all, Egypt.
Egypt?
Yes, Egypt. Mary, tell me this. Where were our people enslaved before Moses thwarted Pharaoh and led us through the wilderness into the promised land?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that would be Egypt.
Exactly, Egypt, Mary love. Are you seriously suggesting that God supports the idea of that precious little boy and his family scuttling off back to Egypt, escaping from a spot of trouble in the promised land that was set apart for Abraham and his descendants centuries ago? Is that honouring to God? But never mind what I think. You tell me how you see it.
Bernard, we never thought of it like that. Of course it wouldn't be Egypt, would it? You're right. Oh, thank you, Bernard. That's a very, very good point. So somewhere else, perhaps?
No. Hold on, Mary. No. Look, this need to escape. Now, is it about the baby or is it actually about, well, is it about you and Joe?
Well, I suppose it could be both. I mean, obviously we're not keen on being murdered by Herod.
No, okay. And if you do clear off to this safe place, what is Herod going to do? Now, take your time. Think about it. What is this so-called king of ours going to do?
Well, those Magi people, they're not going to tell him where we are because they said so. And actually, they're going home without seeing Herod because they had a sort of feeling that the Lord might be possibly telling them that it wouldn't be a very good idea.
Right. And how is that going to make Herod feel?
Cross?
Yeah, very cross. Furious, he will be seething. And as I think you know, Mary, the next item on his agenda will be the murder of just about every male child in Bethlehem, or at any rate, all those under, the age of 2. He's like that. That's his way. Am I right or am I wrong?
You are right, Bernard. You are so right.
Mary, do you seriously think a loving God is going to let those innocent children be killed so that you can hide in a safe corner? Does that sound like the God we worship? Does it?
No, Bernard, it doesn't.
Mary, you believe God is a God of miracles, don't you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Of course I do.
Good.
I know he is.
Excellent. Here's my suggestion. Take the baby to Herod. Declare he's the Son of God. Mary, do you believe the creator of the universe can protect you and his precious son in that situation? Do you and Joe have the faith and the courage to rely on his power instead of running away and risking the lives of others?
Yes, that is exactly what we're going to do. Oh, Bernard, you've helped me to see things so clearly. I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell Joe what you've said, and I know he'll agree. Oh, thank goodness I came round. Gosh, the future of the whole world might depend on this one decision. And when I think how close we came to getting it wrong.
It's a bit scary, isn't it? It's a bit scary. We have to look very closely at this wave that we get, because it might be a scary one that we need to take, or it might be an innocent one that we don't need to take.
Yeah.
It can be quite.
And we know,
tricky.
don't we, that most of the time we follow common sense.
Yeah.
But every now and then we're asked to do something that doesn't make sense.
Well, that's very true, yes. And one of the funniest ones we remember, what was his name?
I don't know what you're talking
the
about.
bishop.
Oh, Bishop George Rindorp,
Yeah,
yes.
George Rindorp. George Rindorp was a lovely fellow. He's gone now, unfortunately. But he told us a story about when he was a vicar. And he had a very Anglican voice, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. It rose and fell like that, and he was a lovely fellow. And this is the story he told, slightly exaggerated, about a day when he didn't just find a wave, he was kind of overwhelmed by a wave, and from the beginning to the end, he had no idea what was going on. And it began when a lady came to the door, and she knocked on his door, and he opened the door, and there she stood in front of him.
Vicar, I've come straight round to tell you something. It's happened.
Has it? Right. Oh, good heavens. Right.
Yes, Vicar, it's happened.
Right. Yes. Yes. So when exactly?
10:30.
Oh, right. So that, yes. Well, that was probably a little later than you expected, wasn't it? Was it?
Well, a little bit earlier, Vicar. A
Yes.
little bit
Sorry.
earlier.
No, I meant to say a little bit earlier. Yes. Now you say that. So yes, of course. So now you're feeling what?
Well,
and in some ways, I suppose we have to say, it was a bad, well, all right, sad thing.
Well,
but in a way, I expect in a way, it was it was a blessed thing.
Well, the thing is, Vicar, what I have to decide now is should I or shouldn't I?
Right. Well, I suppose, you have to bear in mind that this may not be the ideal time to make, those big decisions, not immediately after.
Well, it's not really a big decision, is it, Vicar?
Well, no, it's not a big decision, no, in that sense. But I mean, it's not a tiny one either. It's somewhere between tiny and big. But this may not be the time to make a decision that it comes between tiny and big after so soon after.
After it's happened.
Yes, quite.
Strange. It happened on a Wednesday, isn't it, Vicar?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, yes, most strange on a Wednesday. Imagine it happening on a Wednesday.
I'm sorry, Vicar. I mean a Thursday.
Yes, I meant Thursday too. Yes, of course I did. I meant Thursday. Silly me. Yes, imagine it happening on a Thursday.
I hope you don't mind me asking you, but has it ever happened to you, Vicar?
To me? Well, perhaps not in, quite the same way.
Right. And when it happened to you in not quite the same way, did you or didn't you?
As far as I can recall, at first I didn't. And then, after, a decent interval, well, I did.
Oh, right. I like that. I think that's what I'll do, Vicar. First of all, I won't. And then after a decent interval, I will.
Good. That's good.
Did you want to come round and see it, Vicar?
Do you know, I don't think I will. I think it might be better not because, well, I think we both know on a very deep level why that's, probably not a good idea.
Oh, we do, Vicar, we do. All right, Vicar, well, thank you. I better get back and shut the shed door, if you know what I mean.
The shed door. The shed door. Good gracious, do I know? I do know. So off she went, and a couple of months later, it was the end of George's time at the church, and he preached his last sermon, and after the service he stood in the porch shaking hands with parishioners as they left. And the lady who had approached him at the door all those 2 months ago suddenly appeared and spoke to him.
I wanted to see you before you leave, Vicar, just to say thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. What was that for?
Well, the thing is, Vicar, that when it happened, you was the only one who really understood.
Poor old George. Caught on a wave and taken to a place he knew not of.
And never did know.
No.
And sometimes that happens, doesn't it? Sometimes that happens.
So we wish you well with your waves. We wish you good judgment and good eyes to spot what is coming along and might be useful and right for you.
And don't forget, if there is a wave you feel you've missed that maybe you regret, we do believe in a God of 1,000 new beginnings. So there will be another one and another chance. We really, really do believe that.
Yeah. Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.